Good morning. I'm Sally Handley. Welcome to Mystery Book Club. And today we're discussing Ellie Griffiths' book. I'm sorry, the title just escapes me at the moment.
The
But
Crossing Places.
say it again.
The Crossing
Oh,
Places.
The Crossing Places, the first book in her Ruth Galloway series. And Ellis Vidler is our moderator. Ellis, take it away.
Well, did you all have a chance to read the website description or about her?
No.
Ellie
Oh gosh, I
Well,
forgot to
oh,
send that,
that's
Alice. My
okay.
apologies. Maybe you could put it in the chat box for
Okay.
everybody to take a look at afterwards.
All right. Her real name is Dominica DeRosa. And she was born in London, and her family is from there, but I guess originally maybe Italy. But uh, when she first sent in, she had a couple of books published that were not in this series. And when she sent this book to her agent, she said, "Oh, your name is just not a mystery name. We need to change it." And that's how she became Ellie Griffiths, which doesn't sound very mysterious to me, but I guess it's ahead of Dominica DeRosa. So,
Interesting.
and she was not really, she's not an archaeologist, but her husband is. And he took a job in Norfolk working on the salt marsh on a dig. And she fell in love with the place. And she says the first time she saw it walking along, over the salt marsh, she just fell in love. And she knew this was what she was going to write. And she said the whole story just fell into place while she walked.
Mm.
So I guess a lot of her feelings about the salt marsh are the author's. And she has a lot about archaeology and the way the dig was conducted and the politics of working in a university. That part is all should be accurate. And I think she wrote 22 books in this series.
Wow.
I don't know if you all liked it.
Very much.
I loved it.
I
Very
did. I've read all of them now.
Oh.
I tried a couple of the others, but I haven't been able to get into them yet. They just weren't the same. And maybe after I've had some time off from Ruth, I would do better with the others. I don't know.
I think I read the first three books. I really liked her, but I went back and reread it for this, and didn't realize I had actually been in Burnham Thorpe, which is where it's set, and in fact did a brass rubbing there of Calthorpe, one of the 14th century knights from that period. So, and the place sounds about like your place sounds today, Sally. Gray, rainy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I like the descriptions. I mean, I really could feel the weather and the desolate place, but I would probably like it there. It would appeal to me, except for the cold. If it's too cold, I pass. But did you, Peg, were you able to see anything of a dig? I know they've exposed the hinge, at least one hinge in the salt marsh.
No, we came in one evening and spent the next day in the church doing the rubbing and then left. And so I didn't really see much of other than driving in and out of the area.
Well, I will put the link to her website in the chat in a minute. And she has a lot of pictures from the salt marsh, and she tells a little about things there. So to me, it was fascinating.
The location felt so remote
Yeah.
and off the beaten path. And you really, I mean, it really gave you a lot of insight into this character because she loved it there. She was from the moment she first got there, she, you know, and her feelings about the salt marsh and living in this neighborhood where nobody really knew each other. She didn't even know these people across the way who were there only just in the summer, and she loved it in the winter when nobody, uh, no tourists were there, no summer people. But it really, you know, you really had to think about like the kind of person who had no, was, you know, she didn't have a family, she didn't have close friends living right nearby. And she was very much at home in a very remote location that was very isolated, and she was quite okay with being by herself there.
Yeah, one of the things I noticed was how well, what's his name, Nelson described her. He said she was very self-contained, very content with herself. And I guess you have to be to do that. But I really,
I thought that there was something, well, I sometimes it takes me several chapters before I get into a book,
mhm.
but I was drawn into this book immediately. And this character just fascinated me because as sure as she was of herself as a professional and as an archaeologist, it seemed like that's the opposite of how she felt about herself as a woman, as an attractive woman, right? She
Yeah, she
always
had,
made self-deprecating remarks about herself. She was a little overweight, and that the, that I thought was a really interesting dynamic because, yeah, I mean, when she was in her role as the archaeologist, she was fearless. She was uh, and she was confident in what she said and how she handled herself.
and that's, I'm sure, what part of what the appeal of the salt marsh was. She was the only one around. She didn't have to consider her physical self the way she did and her lack of confidence socially.
But
And,
finish, Ellie.
oh, that was all.
Oh, no, but I thought that I didn't bother to look out how many pounds are the stones that she weighs. Did anybody look for
I
that?
think it was something like 185 pounds,
Oh, okay,
That's it.
okay.
if
But
I'm not mistaken.
yeah, and
A stone is like, I think it's 14 pounds. It's either 12
14
or 14.
pounds to a stone, but I don't know what that equals offhand.
It's either 12 or 14 pounds.
mhm.
I forget because we would
I
weigh.
know it's 14. My husband's British and he still says stone sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay, no, but what I mean, regardless of how much she is overweight, I mean, I got it that she was overweight. It's ironic that some men fell for her, or they had an interest in her. So Nelson, for example, then I don't know about David, and she perceives herself as this fat woman, but a lot of people like her a lot. Eric, and I thought it was very nice. And I agree with you. For me, the landscape was a character by itself. It's so well described that I really felt cold there and a little bit scared.
Me too.
Also, it makes it sound like she was like it was very remote, but she was just a short drive from town and to her work. So she had kind of the country, and the village wasn't that, wasn't that far. So, and I think going back to how she sees herself, I think a lot of women feel like that, especially if you're accomplished, that you are quite confident in the role that you're playing in whatever your profession is, but that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with how you feel away from that.
Mhm.
But women are generally more critical of themselves anyway when it comes to the way they look. I think we depend more on looks than men do in a lot of ways. But I did enjoy the fact that regardless of how she felt, she still must have had enough charm that people, looked at her in a different way.
Mhm.
I thought that was part of why she really preferred to be introduced as Dr. Galloway. It established her position and her value when she wasn't sure about any other value she might have had.
Mhm.
Can I tell you that there are two women that I know, both writers, who have doctorates, who do not say I'm Dr. So-and-so. And I always introduce them as doctor, if they're a speaker for me, but it surprises me because I know that I would most certainly say I'm Dr. Handley if I had worked that hard and gotten that. That would be the first thing that somebody would know about me, I think.
I understood how Jill Biden felt after all those years of working at night to get her degree, her doctorate. She wanted to be Dr. Jill Biden. I understood that.
Yeah.
Well, it is a controversy. A lot of people feel the way you do. A lot of people feel that just a regular doctor should be called doctor. So I guess it depends.
Yeah. And especially, I think it's more so for women.
I have a friend who has a doctorate in history, and a few years back on an airplane, of course, someone's having a heart attack, and this comes to him, and at which point his wife says, "No, he's."
Ah,
Not a
That was
medical
the
doctor.
last time he was allowed to use the term doctor when referring to himself.
I guess that could present a problem for you for sure.
Mm.
Interesting.
I grew up with a friend who was our historian and librarian in Alabama, and she went by Dr. Roberts. She wanted to be doctor, and I think, especially living there, she probably didn't get the respect that she felt she should have
mm.
if she had just been Miss Roberts or whatever.
Hmm.
She needed to establish herself in authority. And
Yeah, and the academic world, I think it's really important that, that that's the heart and soul of academia. And if you have your doctorate, you definitely want to be known as a doctor. It makes a big difference as to the position that you can hold at a university,
yeah,
and whether or not you get tenure. So yeah, it's a very big deal in the academic world. I'm curious to know if anyone suspected the actual killer.
A little bit, a little bit. I thought that, in a way, well, from the beginning on, for me, this guy was a little bit strange.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's nothing wrong in watching birds and everything, but I thought that he had an edge to him that I didn't like. I didn't like. And not, I was not 100% sure, of course, but, I thought Eric is too obvious. I thought it's too obvious that he's the killer. He cannot be the killer because I felt led to Eric and I thought, it's going to be something else. And when I started thinking, I said, what about that weird guy that she has as neighbor?
Yeah, because
right.
she sort of pulls you. She doesn't start hinting about Eric too early in the book, which is why when the hints start, the clues start to pile up, you're going, oh yeah, it's him. And I really then, but you're right, when she in the very beginning, I did suspect this guy
Mm.
a little bit. But then I forgot about him because she does that. She does that very effectively, I think,
Yeah.
leads you away from him to the other
Yes.
characters.
I
Mhm.
think I thought about him in the very beginning, just maybe, possible. But I had kind of forgotten about him and thought, maybe it could possibly be Eric, and Cathbad just didn't seem likely. But when she asked the guy to feed her cat, Flint, when she was away, it suddenly came back to me. Do you trust this guy with your cat?
Mhm.
Somebody killed the other one.
Right.
That made me nervous, and that's when I started to wonder about him a little more.
But then
Dave.
he takes care of everything. And there's actually
did.
a few scenes, I think maybe when they're at that party together, when she
Mhm.
does take the invitation from the people across the street and goes to the party, that you think, well, maybe there's a chance of a relationship between the two of them because they kind of
Yeah,
like they like where they live. They like that in the environment. So yeah, it was interesting how I thought she did that very effectively.
yeah, I worried about Flint from then on after Sparky died.
I think it was interesting how she wove the thoughts of that young girl in periodically, the one that was trapped in the bunker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that part. I suspected him in police work. You look at means, opportunity, and motive, and the means were there because he knew it, and that was a big factor for me, that he knew the whole marsh, and he was in an area he asked not to go there because of the birds, but that made me suspect that there was something else going on. The motive to me was he was so strange, and he was different. So you always have to look at, well, why would that be? Sometimes it could be totally innocent. And he certainly had the opportunity.
Yeah, you're right. I hadn't thought of it that way. Not having your background,
Right.
that wasn't what came up first, but I see it. But I thought later, Eric knew the marsh. They all see Cathbad did, but I could never, after the first couple of meetings with Cathbad, I didn't think he could have done it. He just didn't seem like he could.
And what about her girlfriend?
Oh, my goodness, she was the opposite of her. I thought I at times I wonder how can they be friends
Yeah.
because they're
I think,
so different.
but it's because she was the only one there, the
Probably,
only woman, I think, that she could just relax and talk to. But Shauna was something.
yeah,
But they all had that relationship dating back to that very first dig that predates the book, right?
Yeah.
That's where the relationships all began. And yeah, and the actual the man who was her boyfriend, I read this book, I went through it so quickly, and that's unusual for me. I'm a slow reader, but
Peter, her first, first
her
Peter.
boyfriend that she was involved with, that she broke up with,
Yeah,
you suspected him
because
also
he came
because
back.
yes,
he
yes, a little bit.
seemed
Other
a
one.
little well, he clearly was not he wanted to get back together with her and didn't and seemed when he came back, he seemed angry when she wasn't interested in going back.
Yeah, yeah,
And so there was some suspicion there, even though like the killing the cat and things like that, it seemed like he couldn't have done those things because
Yeah, he seemed
he
to care
wasn't
about the
there.
cats. But
yeah. I never suspected Peter. I thought that, okay, he's getting angry. I think he was hurt in his, excuse me, male ego that she was not gonna go all the way again and fall in for him, you know.
But
Yeah,
she was the one that broke it off with him too. I mean,
Yeah,
he didn't break
yeah,
it up in the beginning. She was the one, she just decided he wasn't for her.
yeah. But as far as him being the killer, I never thought.
You never thought that?
No. With
Okay.
I
Vicky,
suspected from the beginning his motives for coming back to her, that he was looking for a relationship or whatever, something. I didn't think it just happened to be in the neighborhood.
I just thought it was classic rebound.
yeah.
I didn't think he really cared.
I didn't
No.
either. I just thought he thought she was there and she'd be available, but he really wasn't.
No.
And did add an interesting element to the story. You know, someone else, even though we didn't suspect him, you could suspect. I mean, he was present during both time periods. And, you know, I thought it was interesting the way they wove him in.
Yeah. What did you think of Nelson?
Oh, I wanted the book to end up with Nelson and she being a couple. Although I think it's awful to leave one husband, one wife away. But I thought that they were good for each other.
I did too. And he made me laugh. His
Yeah.
dry comments all the time, and thought everybody was a nutter or whatever.
Mhm.
I liked his
Yeah. And he
his
really
voice.
cared about her. He really did.
Yeah.
He worried about her. I think I like him as a character.
Well, the ending was quite a twist that
Yeah.
makes you want to keep reading to find out what happens, right? Oh, wow. I did not expect that to occur.
No.
So yeah, I have to get the next one to find out what happens and how long is it going to take her to tell him she's pregnant?
Not very long.
Yeah, she's got 9 months, right? Or less than that, right?
And she's already what, 3 when she tells you at the end of the book that she's
Something like
pregnant?
that. Yeah.
Gotta be soon.
Yeah.
Or he may not know it's his, I'd guess. He could have not known, but
You know, Alice, this book reminds me of a book that you picked in a previous mystery book club quarter. Um, the one with the minister.
oh, the Episcopal priest, Julia
Right.
Spencer Fleming's books.
Yes.
The
Yes,
priest in
because
them.
you've got two people attracted to one another. One's married. The other one is the woman is the Episcopal priest, and you just wonder where that. I did read the second book, so that relationship obviously doesn't go anywhere for a long time in the series. But this reminded me a little bit of that, because you've got a man who's happily married, but he just in one night uh
But
they hook up, you know,
yeah,
for lack of a better word. But it was more than a hookup, you know. It was a moment when he needed somebody and she did too. So
yeah, they made it seem very natural that they would get together like that.
right,
The author did.
right.
But in both of them, the women are pretty self-contained in some ways. I had forgotten about I can't remember the first one. I guess it was in the Bleak Midwinter.
In the bleak
First one.
midwinter, right.
Yeah. I had kind of didn't think about that, but that's true. Did in his relationship with his wife didn't seem in this book to have it was more like comfortable, and he did admire her beauty. she must have been stunning to look at. And they kind of had a more comfortable relationship than the way he felt about Ruth. I think they had more similar outlooks or thoughts and things.
Yeah, they connected on a cerebral level.
Yeah. And I
Uh,
didn't get that with his wife, what there is in this book of it.
And he really did admire the way she thought when she would go to the site, how she would examine it, how she put the clues together, which, you know, that's not, there are few people who think the way that she thinks. So that was, I think, what first made him notice, notice her as something more than just like an ancillary character that he had to deal with in this investigation. And that's why he kept going back to her for help, because she knew things that the average person didn't know. There were the letters, right? With the
Yeah,
clues.
that was interesting to me. Who could
Mhm.
have written them?
Yeah.
And,
Which is what made it seem like it had to be an academic,
Mm-hmm.
right?
yeah, that's how I got to Eric and Cathbad briefly,
Mm-hmm.
but because I thought it had to be somebody, it's not, just somebody who happened by.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
but
was,
I did not suspect Shauna.
yeah,
Although
Exactly.
knowing how shallow she was in some ways,
No.
it should have been apparent to me, but it wasn't.
And that was one more factor that led you to believe it had to be Eric, because they were keeping this a secret from everybody. I mean, Shauna should have told her. She was her supposed best friend. She should have told her that they had written those letters. So yeah,
Then
that was another sub story there with this going back to his earlier that earlier incident where the individual got killed, a student, when he was a policeman. Um, so yeah, that was there were a lot of moving parts in this story, a lot,
yes.
right?
Did the tense or the writing style work for you?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I found it
Normally,
really.
I do not like present tense,
Oh,
but this one I fell right into from the very beginning. It seemed to work, and I thought it was well done. It didn't bother me. It didn't seem awkward, just fit.
yeah, I agree. I didn't, you're right. I don't usually like it when it's present tense, and I almost didn't notice it at all in this book.
Yeah, it's rare that it stood out to me. Just very few places.
But I think it's interesting. I mean, was it as interesting for you, Darlene, having been a police person and having looked at it from exactly that means, motive, and opportunity perspective? Did you, were all those factors like the letters and all that, were those just, something that you didn't think were all that important because they didn't really add to the framework?
I think it was a great red herring.
Ah,
I think it really kept you going and wondering what was the significance of the letters. And was it the killer that wrote them? Because you never know in an investigation. Some people do try to sidetrack you, make up things or, they're not believable. But I thought she did a great job with that, actually. I kind of like the letters. I like kind of codes and things like that. It makes it a little bit more interesting.
I enjoyed that part of it when they would look up or find what the references were and what they
Yeah.
might mean. I
Now,
thought,
I wonder if she can have, Ruth Galloway can possibly have any relationship with these people after this book, right? Seriously, I mean, Shauna was helping him write the letters, and I mean, what a mean, horrible thing to do to that detective besides, right? To just make him
I
haunt
could,
him about
I
that
could,
death.
I could imagine Eric maybe because he didn't know the policeman except as the cop who got his friend killed or whatever it was, in his opinion. But Shauna, I thought she really is shallow, just
Yeah.
whatever there is for her right now.
And what was the name of the character who was kind of like a druid?
Cathbad.
But
I,
That was Cathbad.
Yeah, because
Michael Malone is his real name, but he uses Cathbad.
yeah, exactly, exactly. What an oddball he was. And yet, like he could have been, well, you clearly thought it was him at a certain point. Everybody thought it was him at a certain
Mhm.
point, right? Because he was just an oddball and
Mhm.
He was. I pictured that purple cloak so many times.
yeah,
And,
really, this was an amazing book. It was really masterfully done, I thought. It just, like I said, so many moving parts, and boy, it tied up very satisfactorily for me.
Mhm.
Uh, you're very satisfied at the ending, but you want to know more about what's going to
Yes.
go on with her for sure.
yeah, I really liked her as a character and wanted to keep reading about her.
In fact, I attended the local Sisters in Crime session last Thursday night, and it was about poisons. They had a doctor on who talked
Oh,
about various poisons and, fact and fiction. It was really a good presentation. But in the beginning, before the presentation started, they were talking about who were your favorite characters, and Ruth Galloway's name came up for sure as one of somebody's favorite character. And I said, yeah, we're reading her, and I agree. She's a great character.
When it described Ruth, was Ursula there at the meeting?
No,
Hmm. Well, I kind of pictured somebody looking roughly physically like Ursula
yeah,
because she's a big woman. She might be a little overweight, but she's not what you think of. She's carried her weight well,
yeah,
Ursula does. And I always thought that Ruth did. I saw her as maybe a little overweight, but not uh, grossly
right,
overweight or anything. And she was fairly good sized, a bigger woman.
yeah.
So that made me think of her, even
Well,
though the personalities were different.
I also can't imagine her as a mother, however, now that I'm thinking about that.
Ruth,
I I uh I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting to see how she handles motherhood.
I'm looking forward to. Well, I
Oh,
started rereading them
Oh,
because I read them over a year ago. Started them, I guess, a couple of years ago. And I was anxious to get on with it. So I do know what goes on, but
oh.
it's interesting.
well, I'm excited to know that there are 22 books in the series, because this is kind of like the Amelia Peabody series that, you really have a lot of books to look forward to. When you like a character that as much as I like her, I think it will be I think I want to read the rest of the series for sure.
Do the rest of you plan to read more of them, or who said? I guess Peg said you'd read 3 of them. You thought.
a long time ago, but My focus lately has really been on reading authors that I don't know, rather than rereading familiar people.
Well, once I started, I had to reread this one for the book club because it's been so long since I read it the first time. But it did make me want to go on. And I didn't have I was waiting for a couple of books to come in from the library. So I started again. And
I enjoyed them all that I read.
I have.
So Ellie Griffiths writes about has other series as well, Ellis?
Yes. And I have not read more than 2 or 3 chapters of any of them. I tried 2 or 3 and I just couldn't get into what I was seeing.
I found that
Maybe-
the same with who wrote Amelia Peabody, Elizabeth Peters.
Yeah.
She has 2 other series, and I read one of the other books and I thought, oh God, this is not even remotely like Amelia Peabody, and I didn't like it. But I think there's a 3rd series I was unaware of. The one I had read was about the museum, the young woman who worked for a museum, I think in Germany.
Vicky something. Yeah, I tried that too, and I don't think I read any beyond the first one.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But I know there's another series, but I have to so many books, so little time, so many series
Yes.
That's
too.
the thing. I was thinking I would love to go on at least one more or 2 more with her, but I have 2 other book clubs. So
Oh, wow.
it's a minimum of 3 books a month, plus the ones I want to read because not of a book club, because I maybe have read a review or something that sounds so interesting. But the result is that all the books you can see here,
Yeah.
all the books I have not read yet. I mean, I have another room which the same shelves and all of those there I've read. And I think it's like I should stop, somewhere and start reading all these, but I don't have the time.
There's actually a Japanese word for buying more books than you can ever read. There's a
Uh-huh.
word for it they have in their
Oh,
culture. So it's a thing. It's a real
no,
thing.
no, I know all of people who keep buying and but they don't have the time to read them all.
But
But I
that is
can.
I do that. I do that too. I keep
Mhm,
thinking, oh, this sounds good. I'd like to read that. And
exactly.
especially if it's on sale or something, I'll just go ahead and get it or request it from the library. And then when that comes, I feel like I have to read them then. So it doesn't give me time to read everything I
No.
think I'd like to.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's like Sally was saying, so many books, so little time, or you, Alice.
the
And
challenge. The
it is
challenge of
true.
belonging to more than one book club is absolutely that
Yeah.
you have these obligations to meet, and you never get to read the books that you just want
That
to read for yourself that aren't of interest to other people in the book club.
Exactly. On the other hand, I mean, the book clubs for me, a lot of times introduce me to authors
Yeah.
that I could never read if it weren't because, oh, I have this for this book club and this, I mean, for the other one. Like, I would never discover all these mystery writers here in this book club, for example. So it's good and it's bad.
I have a question for George and Mike. Did you all enjoy this book? Or do you think it's more directed toward women? I can't hear
George,
you,
you're muted.
George.
I haven't read it yet. I was hoping to get
Ah.
here early enough to learn about it and decide if I, like Yolanda said, if it's a book I want to invest in.
And you missed the meaty part of the discussion.
Mhm.
And-
and I apologize. I'm really sorry, but I had an engagement I couldn't get out of.
Oh, it happens.
Yeah.
But, well, I
And
hope
George
you
keeps
find it
intro-
at your library maybe before you invest. Or read the first chapter online or something.
Yeah, I know. I'm guilty. I usually have read the book, but this time I just haven't.
George keeps introducing us to authors. Again, more than we can ever possibly read.
Yeah. Mike, how about you?
Oh, well, on so many levels, I remain the most boring guy in town. Um, I have not read the book, but I wanted to just join and listen to the reviews. I write books, and I'm working on a project right now, um, where how can I say this? The particular female character is more involved than usual in my books, and I just wanted to listen to the things you're saying and get some ideas. I write my books for crabby old guys like myself, and probably 85% of my readers are women. So it's always good to pick up on what you enjoy and what you look for.
They must like those crabby old guys you're writing about.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and those crabby old guys you're writing about, they're much cheaper than the women. So that's good to have 85%.
Yeah, yeah. Well, one of the things that happens in my largest series, the guy's a private eye, and at the end of it, he's had a relationship with a woman, and traditionally at the end of the book, he gets some response from her that basically says, "Please don't ever call me again." Women just love that, and yes, I understand. Why did she wait this long to tell him that? That sort of thing. So, yeah.
But in general, do you think women read more than men? I haven't read any statistics, but in all the three clubs I belong to, we are overwhelmingly women.
Mhm.
What do you think it's?
Well, John Irving says that, it's women who read novels.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's without women, there wouldn't be a book industry.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
the men I know, not nearly as many of them read fiction. That's
Yeah.
probably right.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I don't know.
And we don't have all male book clubs.
Yeah, yeah.
And we in the all of the book clubs I've visited, there are very few of us.
Mm.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
for my other book club, we are reading Playground. I can't think of the author's name right now. I listened to it on audio.
Mhm.
This is like an award, one of those award-winning books, and I'm always skeptical of the award winners because they just make my head hurt. And let me tell you, this book really gave me a head hurt my head. But I cannot wait to have the discussion about it because there's a lot of ideas about AI.
Oh.
I have to say, in its own right, it's a masterpiece. This guy also wrote The Overstory. I don't know if any of you heard of that one. That was a big bestseller, and it was about how trees speak to each other. But in this book, you have these it goes back and forth between characters, and the twist at the end when you realize what has, because you're going, wait a minute, and then all of a sudden it clicks what has gone on, and it's mind bending. And we have one person in our book club who always picks books like that, and then frequently she won't read them.
Oh,
And you want to just choke her. But you know, I have to say, these are the books that really generate a discussion that where we spend more time talking about the book than we do otherwise. So it's good. It's good to read things outside of your comfort zone too, to see what to make
absolutely.
you think. I mean, to keep the brain cells working.
Yeah.
So looks like we're at the end. Oh, well, we've got another 10 minutes. Alice, you want to give us a little summary or a little preview of what we're reading next?
Well, it's fun to me. It has more humor than this
Mhm.
first two, especially Dana's. But I read it long ago. I just got it and getting ready to read it again. But I remember laughing and just loving it. And I went on to read many others in that series because it was interesting and fun, and I loved the characters and the relationships in it. I thought archaeology was, I've always thought it was interesting. That's how I got here. And I did just post in chat Ellie Griffiths' website.
Great. So,
Hey,
and just so you know,
Sally,
what? Go
what?
ahead, George.
Boy, you are intimidating. What? That's a joke between us. I noticed that there are two people there that have not probably ever looked at my blog or been on it. But Sally kind of alluded to it. Mike and Yolanda, I have a blog where I do nothing but promote other authors and their work. And I'm going to put my email address in my blog, or not my blog, but my website. Go there, hit blog if you're into, take a look at what we do. I'd love to have you guys come make a guest post. Darlene has been with us several times. She can tell you. I don't know if you get a boost, but I hope you do.
I think you do a great job, George. I always enjoy reading your blog. I make a point of it because you're very talented with that.
Thank you.
When
So
do
I
you have
expect
time,
that
when do you have time to write?
it's rough. It's rough.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, book 2 in my thriller police procedural series, I decided that book 1 was so bad that I needed to get what an edit. What's a fundamental or transitional or the editor that gives you advice on how to rewrite your book, and
Developmental.
a development editor. And oh man, she's right on. So that's what I've been working on,
Ah,
and basically redoing the whole book.
Wow. That's work.
Gee.
Yeah, but I love what she's given me, and so I'm at the stage where I'm going to listen to it again before I send it back to her.
Listening.
writing. I
a
don't know
good
why
way to
we do
it.
this.
Oh,
I don't know why we do this. I wake up some mornings going, why am I doing this? But then, you know, you sit down and you start clicking away, and before you know it, you've written a couple of chapters, and it feels good,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, the uh Crocodile on the Sandbank by Elizabeth Peters is our next title. And it's 19th century, 1800s.
1880, I think they said.
Yeah. And we have a really unique character that's pretty amusing. Amelia Peabody, and she is exactly what you would expect from that name.
yeah.
So, I'm very much looking forward to hearing, because I adored that series, so it'll be interesting to hear what everybody else thinks of it.
The book is really well written. I've only read a few chapters, but I was just blown away by how well she writes. I really like it.
Elizabeth Peters is one of the founders of Malice Domestic, which is the conference for traditional mysteries and cozy mysteries that's held every year in Bethesda. And they now, I think they even have now an Elizabeth Peters Award that they give out at the awards dinner. So she's, yeah, she's pretty unique as an author, I think, for the type of mystery that she wrote. It's a
She
lot of
also,
history in it, a lot of what went on in Egypt, you know, and it shows her, well, I don't, we can talk about that next week, okay, or next month.
she also writes it as, or wrote as Barbara Michaels. And they were just more, I don't know, I guess there was sort of romantic, mildly romantic, but suspense.
That's her real name, right? Barbara Michaels?
I think Barbara Mertens might be her real name.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'd have to be sure about that, but I think it's Mertens.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right.
So
Okay, anybody have
who's
any
next?
questions? Anything they want to
Got
close
one more
with?
to- Well, I'm looking forward to this next book too. I really loved it when I read it a long time ago, and I can't wait to do it again because it made me laugh, which I need these days. You know, an escape from reality is a good thing sometimes. And I find I'm reading more.
Good. I will also be sending out an email preview of the next quarter,
Okay.
very
Good.
soon. I have a new author on board, and I'm looking forward to her selections. It's Michelle, I think the name is pronounced Fournier, and
Hmm.
she wrote the Serial Killer's Guide to San Francisco.
Ah,
So I read that book, and she's got two other books that look good too. So I mean, not hers, but that's her book that we're going to be reading. But be on the lookout for that email.
one
Okay.
more question. Mike, I'm sure I've seen your name before. You do write as Mike Ferrisy,
I do, yes.
so I
Yeah,
can look yours up too.
yeah, they're all works of genius.
Okay, okay.
No,
Hey,
thank
and
you.
Ellis, you don't have to worry. Mike's gonna post, he's gonna be a guest post, I'm sure.
Oh, good.
Ah, there you
Good.
Yeah,
go. There you go.
Okay, I've got to
Okay.
go. Thank you.
Okay,
thank
signing
you very
off.
much.
Thank you.
Happy
Thank you very
Valentine's.
much. I enjoyed it.